Hello, folks, and thank you guys for checking out our 2020 annual meeting this year via PowerPoint. My name is Dana Boyle, and I'm president of the Northern Neck Vegetable Growers Association, and I welcome you. We would love to be able to be with you all this year in person to fellowship and have lunch together and all that fun stuff. But since that could not happen, I will instead take this time to thank our extension agents, Stephanie and Trent, for putting together this information pack program. For those of you joining us that are not members of the Northern Neck Vegetable Growers Association, please consider contacting me or one of our members or uh, one of our extension agents to find out more about our educational programs, our educational trips, our scholarship, and more. We'd love to share more information with you about our fun association. At this time, I'd like to thank our sponsors shown on your screen for their support of our 2020 annual meeting. Please fill out your survey at the end of the presentation to have your name entered into a drawing to win a gift card sponsored by these businesses.
Hello, this is Tom Kuhar from Virginia Tech, and this talk is a pest management update on corn earworm for sweet corn and some other crops. Before I get into talking about corn earworm and some of the research, I definitely want to acknowledge and thank some of the people that make this work possible, all the great graduate students that are in my lab that help put out all the trials in the western part of the state near Blacksburg. But then especially Miss Helene Dowdy at the Eastern Shore AREC, who conducts all the insecticide trials and some of the entomology research on vegetables that we do on the Eastern Shore. Well, for anyone who has tried to grow sweet corn in Virginia, you certainly know that the #1 pest by far is corn earworm. We did a survey a couple of years ago of sweet corn growers, and probably over 90% of the time, corn earworm was the pest that's of most concern to growers, and it also was greater than 90% of the insects that we found infesting an ear across multiple trials was corn earworm. So by far, we're talking about one major insect pest. There's some other insects that may get into an ear, and some actually follow corn earworm, such as sap beetles, but corn earworm is the major driver of pest management in this crop. Corn earworm is a moth pest. You can see a picture of the moth down in the bottom left corner, and these moths, a lot of them will make their way up from the south and get here in mid-July, but we will have, if it's not a severely cold winter, we will have actually overwintering corn earworms that'll occur right in our cornfields. And again, if it's a severe cold winter, we probably won't get many that will make it, but we will still get corn earworm every year. And we will get moths coming up from the south. Don't know how many that's going to be. And we may get some just that overwintered in our own fields. But regardless, they all tend to get going sometime in the month of July. That's when the adults will be laying eggs, and sweet corn is one of their absolute preferred hosts to deposit their eggs on. For decades, the tool of choice for controlling corn earworm and sweet corn, and actually most of the other crops as well, have been pyrethroid insecticides. These nerve poisons have been around since the 1980s, and there are many different types of pyrethroids, many different generations of products, many that have gone generic with the same active ingredient that were in some of the other original products that have come out. Regardless, we have multiple options for pyrethroids, and because of that, the cost is very low on these insecticides, and the use rate is very low. So you put out a little bit of a very cheap insecticide, and it has worked for decades very well against corn earworm, one of our most important pests. This is an example of a insecticide trial that was conducted back in 2008 in Virginia Beach on a commercial farm, and this just basically shows how insecticide trials used to go during that time. We've got Warrior 2 and Lambda-Ci. Both have the same active ingredient. It's in a pyrethroid, captures another pyrethroid that's down at the bottom. And after about 6 applications beginning at tasseling, we basically got pretty good protection of that sweet corn and eliminated the corn earworms that were in the ears. But as time would go on, and something happened around the time of 2008 and has been established, and that is that it seems like the susceptibility of corn earworm moths to pyrethroids has dropped, and this has been picked up very well by the researchers at the Virginia Tech's Tidewater AREC in Suffolk, Virginia, first by Ames Herbert and his crew, and then now Dr. Sally Taylor. They have monitored pyrethroid susceptibility in corn earworm moths. So they would basically catch moths at pheromone traps and put them in these treated vials that has enough pyrethroid insecticide. In this case, it's 5 micrograms of cypermethrin. That is enough that it should kill all moths. And you put the moths in there for 24 hours, and you should get none surviving the next morning. And then, of course, there's control vials just to see whether control mortality is actually 0. And this has been done for a long time, as you can see. It goes back to 2003 and actually is still being done today. And really what it has shown is since 2008, we have had reduced susceptibility. We're getting a lot more moths surviving these vials, and there should be none. So that was an indication that something might be going on. We might be losing our susceptibility to this class of chemistry in the corn earworm moth. And some other data, a little more detailed work that was done by Dr. Taylor was they collected corn earworms, the larvae, and reared them out to a 2nd generation and fed them on a diet, a corn earworm diet that was laced with different insecticide concentrations. And from that, you could calculate the LD90, the lethal dose it takes to kill 90% of the corn earworms. And what this is showing in the table is that the top benzone, that is actually a laboratory strain that you can buy of corn earworms that are susceptible to pyrethroids. And as you see in this case, it's less than 1 part per million of the pyrethroid. In this case, it was Warrior, or Lambda-Ci halothrine, was needed to kill it. And that's a very susceptible colony, and it didn't take very much pyrethroid. But these are populations of corn earworm that were collected around Virginia, and then a couple sites in North Carolina as well. And just look at the Suffolk one, and just what that indicates is it takes 229 parts per million now to actually reach the LD90 of the corn earworms from that population, and that's much, much higher than what you would see in a susceptible strain. So again, this is verification that we may have some things going on with resistance in corn earworms. So that led us to some trials that we did in 2020, and what we did is test most of the pyrethroids that sweet corn growers are going to use to control corn earworm and other things. So these included Asana, Baythroid, a bifenthrin, there's actually many products that contain that. It's generic. Hero, which actually contains 2 different pyrethroids. It has bifenthrin, and then it has zeta-cypermethrin, which is in Mustang Max, another one of our pyrethroids. Lambda-Ci, a very popular pyrethroid. Permethrin, one that's been around a long time. Warrior 2, which also has Lambda-Ci halothrine. And then Besiege was another product which not only has Lambda-Ci halothrine, but it has a diamide, the same diamide that's in Coragen. So these 10 insecticides were evaluated at 2 different locations. We ran a trial at Kentland Farm in Whitethorne, Virginia, and also ran another trial on the Eastern Shore of Virginia. And what we wanted to do here is just to see head-to-head, how are pyrethroids doing? Are they getting the job done? And then 2, are there any differences among the pyrethroids that may be showing up here now with some resistance starting to build up? So let's look at the Whitethorne, Virginia location, the farm near Blacksburg. And again, these were 7 applications starting at tassel push. So there was enough coverage, enough sprays, and the sprays were directed right at the silk on the sweetcorn. So shouldn't be a coverage issue. This should just be totally the insecticides being applied in a very optimal manner. And really, we actually got very good control with all of the products, all of the insecticides, all the pyrethroids. They all worked very comparably, and they were significantly better than the untreated control. So that was at the Whitethorne location. No real differences among the pyrethroids, and actually all of them are working very well. But now look at the same exact test conducted on the eastern shore of Virginia. This is in Painter. And what jumps out at us is, one, we only had about 10% of the ears were clean in the untreated control. But then look at the range that you see with the pyrethroids. We have, they're really all over the map. And one indication is that Hero seemed to be the best performing of the pyrethroids, and that happens to be the one that has 2 different insecticides in it, lambda-cyhalothrin and zeta-cypermethrin. So there may be something there that having 2 different insecticides, even though they're both pyrethroids, actually helped out in this instance. But the other thing that really jumps out is that Besiege outperformed all the pyrethroids, and this is an indication that we have some resistance going on the eastern shore, and that you needed that diamide that's in Besiege to actually get the job done. So this indicates that going with straight pyrethroids probably is not the best way to go. So then what are some other options that you might have for sweetcorn? Well, you've got the spinosins, including Blackhawk and Radiant. These are more IPM friendly options that aren't as harsh on your predatory insects and are active on corn earworm. And then you got your diamides such as Coragen. Besiege, as we showed you in the previous slide, had the same active ingredient that's in Coragen as well as the pyrethroid. So another reason to be reconsidering the use of the pyrethroids is, what else are you killing when you spray them out there? These are broad spectrum insecticides, and they kill a lot of things, and the one thing they definitely kill are natural enemies. In fact, things like lady beetles and predatory bugs, which can feed on corn earworm eggs and larvae, they are way more susceptible to pyrethroids than any of the worms that you're trying to kill. Another thing that'll happen if you spray pyrethroids is you will have outbreaks of corn leaf aphid. In fact, I don't see corn leaf aphid being a problem in any fields unless growers have sprayed multiple pyrethroids. And these aphids will multiply. They are resistant to pyrethroids, and you will have the sticky honeydew and some of the sooty mold that'll end up on the husk of the sweet corn, which could impact marketability of that sweet corn ear. So what we've done over the last several years is look at how do we implement some of these more IPM friendly insecticides into sweet corn, and do they work as well as spraying straight pyrethroids? And here's an example of a trial we conducted in Blacksburg, and what we did here is every other spray we used Hero, which is the best pyrethroid, but then we rotated that with either Coragen, either Besiege, Blackhawk, or Radiant for those alternate sprays. And this shows that we actually got very good control. This is actually numbers of corn earworm larvae found in 25 years. And you see very few found in either the straight pyrethroid or the other products. So that was one trial. Here was another one conducted where we rotated with Warrior 2, a pyrethroid, on the eastern shore of Virginia. And these were 7 applications. And every other spray was one of the 3 that you see there. And we got, again, excellent control of corn earworm with all of these different insecticides. So we do have some options, and the one thing I wanted to point out is that Coragen is very safe for natural enemies and very safe on honeybees and other pollinators, which, although corn is not a insect pollinated plant, it's a wind pollinated plant, bees will come to it when the tassels are shedding their pollen. It is actually very loaded with bees during that time. So if you're going to use Coragen, that is a great time to use it when the corn is pollinating, because you're going to be spraying something that doesn't kill bees, whereas pyrethroids do. Okay, moving into another way of managing corn earworms that a lot of growers have used and have for the last decade or so, and that is the use of Bt transgenic sweet corn hybrids. And there are several different ones out there, Attribute and Attribute 2, and these are much different Bt events, and I'm going to kind of tell you. But one thing I will say is that all Bt sweet corn hybrids will give you virtually 100% control of European corn borer, which bores into the stalk. So stalk protection, they work outstanding. Now ear, a little bit different story. We've got to get into the weeds here of what Bt corn events are available in corn. Well, it has gotten very, very complicated. Bt corn has a lot of different proteins that may be options for the different varieties that are available. As you see, these are field corn options, but some of the same ones are found in Bt sweet corn. And what I wanted to point out is that you have the one in blue, the Cry1AB. This is the original Bt protein that was put into the very first Bt corn. It's the one that works very well against European corn borer in the stalk, but it is also one that corn earworm has developed resistance to. So that's a Cry1AB. The green one, Cry1F, and then the pink one, Cry1A 105. These corn earworm has also developed resistance to. The only one that it appears to be working is the VIP proteins that are found in some of these field corn varieties and also found in the Attribute 2 lines of Bt corn. So we are part of a group, I say we, Dr. Sally Taylor, Ling Dowdy on the Eastern Shore, and myself, and we are part of a multi-state group that evaluates Bt sweet corn hybrids every year. We've been doing it for 5 years now. And this is just some of the results. The results have not changed across the years that we've been looking at it, and what they all indicate is that if you're not planting Bt sweet corn that has the VIP gene in it, such as Remedy on the far right, you can see the percentage of ears damaged by corn earworm. It's zero. It's virtually zero across all 4 locations: Abingdon, Blacksburg, Eastern Shore, and Suffolk. So we're getting across all these locations, and actually across the whole eastern U.S. Remedy is the only one that's working. The other BTs that are found in some of these other varieties, you might as well just plant the non-BT corn, which is the Obsession 1, the second one listed there. So really, really good data across multiple sites that indicate the same thing, and that is that the only Bt sweet corn that's really working is the ones that have the VIP gene in it, or the Attribute 2 lines. So this has some implications for Bt products. So way before there was Bt transgenic crops, we had Bt sprayable products that were that had some of the same proteins in them that are found in the Bt transgenics. Unfortunately, it is not the VIP protein, it is the Cry proteins, the ones that we've seen that corn earworm is resistant to. So there are a lot of different products that are available, such as Dipel and some of the others. Zentari, Agree, Javelin, these are all Bt products that are available for foliar sprays. And one thing we did is looked at a insecticide test. This would be for organic sweet corn growers, and do the BTs work at all? And we looked at Dipel and we looked at Zentari, which, by the way, are 2 different strains of BT. Dipel is Bt Kerstaki and Zentari has Bt Azawi, and neither one worked. This is the percentage of ears that are clean of corn earworm, and you see really compared to Coragen, which is a insecticide that works well, as we've indicated earlier, that the BTs just really don't do anything as a foliar spray, and there is resistance to BT. And this has implications for other vegetables. Corn earworm attacks over 300 different plants, some of which BT, especially if you're an organic grower, may be a insecticide of choice because it's very IPM friendly. But as you can see, it's probably not a very good option for corn earworm control on any of these vegetables. Fortunately, for fruiting vegetables and a lot of those other vegetables, we have a wide selection of Lepidopteran specific insecticides that really work extremely well. A lot of different options. By the way, there is a handout that we've put together that kind of outlines how these insecticides are grouped into their various classes for rotation, and a lot of the products that are available. So this handout is actually going to be available for download here at this meeting. It'll be on the site where the talks are located. But this is just a picture of what you will see on that handout. But so the bottom line is there's a lot of options, and virtually all of these are very effective on corn earworm, and they are things that you can rotate away from. But we've got some other crops now where corn earworm has shown up in force and become a major pest problem, and that is hemp. There's a lot of new hemp growers over the last couple of years in Virginia and across the country, and by far the #1 pest of hemp is corn earworm. One of the things corn earworm does, as you can just see, this plant is absolutely crawling with corn earworms, is it causes bud rot. So you get the flower buds, which is the marketable portion for a lot of hemp that's grown, particularly for CBD oil. You see the rot that occurs, and that is from corn earworm feeding, and then some pathogens that kind of enter and just kill that whole bud. So tremendous economic loss for that crop, which has very few options for controlling this insect. And one of the things you can use on hemp in Virginia is BT products. And unfortunately, what this slide shows, as you can look at Javelin and Dipel, which are the two BTs, and this slide is number of corn earworms found on 10 hemp plants that we were. This trial was actually conducted on the eastern shore of Virginia, and this was grain hemp, but it does show you that the corn earworm numbers that are found on BT are equal to the ones found on untreated control, compared with a product like Entrust, which is spinosad. In this case, it's an OMRI certified organic product, but it's not one that hemp growers can use. Hemp growers really have very few options at all for corn earworm control, and it's a very tough pest for them. So that's it. A discussion of corn earworm and kind of our current situation here. Some parting thoughts that, this pest has been, and it's even more so now, one of our major pest problems of sweet corn and many other crops in the state of Virginia. Resistance to pyrethroids, is clearly occurring, as we've shown in our trials this past year, in comparing the eastern shore to Blacksburg. We had resistance on the eastern shore, and it made a difference. So rotating insecticides is a very good option, highly recommended for a lot of reasons, but one, you're probably gonna rotate to an insecticide that's a lot safer on non-target beneficial insects. Not only do we have resistance to pyrethroids, but there is resistance to many of the proteins, the cry proteins in particular. Corn earworm has developed this, which has impacted the BT Sweetcorn varieties and has also impacted the foliar spray options of BT, which is a very bad story for hemp growers. So that's all. Thank you for your attention.
Please take a moment to complete the brief survey linked below. Your responses will give us a better understanding of how we are doing and how we may better serve your needs in the future. To access the survey, you may scan the QR code on the left using your smartphone's camera or QR code scanning app, or enter the link on the right into your internet browser. Those who complete the survey have the opportunity to enter a raffle for the chance to win a Visa gift card provided by our generous sponsors. Thank you.